let's talk about PlayStation Experience.
Sure.
It was just on over the weekend. We were all there playing whatever games we could, playing AAA games, playing indie games. Let's go down the couch. Alexa, first of all, what were some of the games that sort of stood out to you at PSX?
Rez.
Okay.
I played Rez on the VR. I get motion sick, so I don't play VR games. I played it with the Morpheus, and I didn't get sick. I'm really, really happy. So I really like Rez. I know you had a very interesting Rez experience.
So there was a back room.
Yeah.
I think you wore this too.
I tried to get in.
Yeah, okay.
And they were like, it's booked out.
Really?
You want to wear the trans vibrator suit, you got to book ahead.
Yeah, so Mizuguchi, being the crazy person that he is, built a suit with 26 different vibrators on it. And you went in and played Rez in VR with the suit vibrating in time to everything that's happening. And he was secretly taking video of me while I was in VR. I couldn't see or hear anything. And it's him just dancing up on me.
I saw it.
And it's up on my Twitter. It's hilarious. It's just Mizuguchi just like, yeah, you like that, Rez? You enjoy it?
Was he doing it to everyone, but you're the only one that's got, like, evidence?
I think I'm one of the few people that has evidence of him doing it, but I think he did it for a couple other people, yeah.
I liked how at the end of this presentation, he just pulled the mask off, and I go, oh, look, it's The Miz, and he's like, waves, and it just shuts off.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm gone.
I'm going, yeah.
Rez.
You just saw that, right? Okay, I'm out. Enjoy. What I love about it, what I love about it is it lends itself so well, like you were saying, to VR in terms of motion sickness and everything, because of the aesthetic of it. You know, when you're in these like hyper-realistic worlds, or you play something like a Drive Club, because they had Drive Club there as well, that really sets off your inner ear and your sense of balance and your sense of, oh, this isn't real.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? With something like Rez or Super Hypercube, because of the aesthetic of it and the feeling of openness, and also I think because it's third person in VR,
Yeah, I think that's it.
it makes you a little less sick.
Yeah.
But
it's like
just
one step removed in a way.
Yeah.
We'll get into the VR stuff in a little while. Some of the other sort of big name games that we saw, a game that I didn't play for a while, but I got a demonstration of, and so did you as well. Media Molecule's Dreams. What did you think of it?
It's really interesting. I mean, it's the next logical progression of what they were already trying to do with Little Big Planet, Little Big Planet 2, focusing very much on creation tools, empowering players to sort of make their own experiences. Although, in talking to the developers, they told me that there will be sort of a campaign of sorts, a lot of created content that exists with sort of a beginning and an end, the same way there was in Little Big Planet. I mean,
but it's kind of there to teach you how to use the tools rather than...
It definitely seems that way, yeah. And that part was not on display. They were mainly showing off the creation tools, but they were explaining that this will exist. But they're also really adamant that everything in the sort of campaign portion of the game will be created with the same tools that they're giving to players. It's not like they're doing something on their end with they're coding in specific stuff. They're using the exact same tools they're giving everyone else to create their own campaign. So in theory, you could create something just as robust or detailed or rich or even story driven as what they intend to create for players.
It's funny because that's such a fascinating thing, and every time they demo it, they've been doing like these regular dev streams. Every time they demo it, they create something completely different with it, and I think it's sort of helping their cause and hurting their cause in a way, because it's hard to pin down and explain to somebody within 30 seconds what Dreams is and why you need it and why you want it. I think it's very fascinating to people who are artists or creators. Like, they immediately are like, oh, I just want to touch this thing and use this thing. But like when you're explaining to somebody who wants to play a game, like, what do I do with Dreams?
Yeah.
How do I use it? What am I doing with this thing? And they're like, whatever you want. And it's like, I don't know.
It's almost like they made a tool and not a game. It kind of feels like they've been in application development for the past couple of years, because they've made this tool set. And I was really taken aback by how enjoyable the process of making actually seemed to be. Like, look how many people watch Bob Ross on Twitch now painting. Like, I could watch somebody use this who's like good at using it.
I made that same comparison actually to them when I was talking to them, and they were explaining how they wanted to make it accessible and wanted everyone to feel like they were creating something worthwhile and not feel like they were failing to create. And in talking about that, it did make me think of Bob Ross and sort of his approach to painting, and they said that absolutely they agreed that was a good analogy for what they're sort of trying to do, and then they also were fully open about this is really about creation. I mean, it's not a traditional game like we're used to seeing. It's not like, oh, I can pick this up and play 6 hours and then I'm done. It is more of a creation system. And one thing that I thought was really fascinating that they pointed out is you're going to be able to save whatever you create as a 3D image file and then print it on a 3D printer.
Yeah, or
so you can make characters in the game.
This thing is too crazy.
And then 3D print
as long
them.
as you have access to it.
So
yeah.
you can, if you,
You
want
can import
to, you
them
can use
into
Dreams as just like a toy creation system. And like, I just want to create a thing I can put on my desk. That's great. It's not a game, it's a toy creation tool. Fine. That's how you want to treat it.
So they use standard because like 3D modeling is essentially standardized. You can also like import this stuff into Maya if you want to.
Yeah.
Like it's all like it works.
Yeah, they were saying
so
that a big part of
crazy.
it is sharing and letting people, like, if you just want to be a character creator, you can do that, and then other people can take what you create, put it in their own games, or print it for themselves. And so it really is about empowering players to create and not so much acting as a traditional video game. So if you want to think of it as a creation tool system, then I think that's a perfectly valid perspective on what Dreams actually is. Although, again, yeah, that is not super easy to communicate quickly or easily or sexily.
Yeah, it's weird. I was super cold on it until I saw them doing that stuff, and it's completely
the
turned me
stuff you
around.
can do is super cool. Like the level of customization and just the things you can do. It's incredible the detail that you can put into things.
It looks like they really took that sort of the search like I remember when you were able to search in Little Big Planet 3 for like everything, and the search system was so good, and they really applied that to Dreams in an interesting way. When they were doing the onstage demo, they were like, I'm making a monster, but I don't like drawing eyes. I'm bad at eyes. So I'm going to look up eyes, and I'm going to see all the eyes. And here's a guy who makes nothing but eyes. And here's a guy who lists himself as a guy who makes nothing but monster parts. And so you can like mix and match from all these people who already do amazing things. It's interesting because it's going to live and die based on this community, and what it winds up being, whether it winds up being a game or a creation tool or whatever, is going to be totally dependent on what the highest number of people is doing with it, right?
Yeah.
Which is, I think, is also interesting.
Yeah, because you see Mario Maker go one way where it's like, oh, the first couple of weeks it's all these automatic levels, and then it pulls in this other direction. Yeah, it's going to be super
It's
interesting.
been working for Mario Maker though, and arguably it worked for Minecraft as well, and in Little Big Planet. So I mean, I think that there is space for something like this to succeed. Although you're very right that it is very dependent on what the community does with it, and that will dictate how the experience evolves.
Stepping away from that, because we've got a bunch of games to cover. Uncharted 4 as well, among thieves. We saw you now. It's a Telltale game.
Dialogue tree.
Yeah.
I want to know how that impacts things. Like, I love the idea. I'm all about dialogue trees. I love Telltale. I loved, like the Deus Ex game. It's Mass Effect, all that kind of stuff. But I want to know, like, if it has a tangible impact on games. Like, it's,
Does it need to?
It's slowly going to remember
Okay, so
that,
this dialogue choice right here is the one that they showed off, and you're right. It's kind of like,
Which Uncharted did you like the best?
yeah, how's that going to change
But
things?
Who cares?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think they were just kind of showing off, like, hey, this is in there now, without showing
definitely.
off.
So I need to know more. Like, how is this going to impact the game and the way that narratives convey
Like,
to players?
if it doesn't, that's fine, right?
Yeah.
Like, if it's just something to keep you
but then
engaged in a
why
cutscene.
do it? I don't know. It feels strange if it's not going to have a broader impact. So I want to know more.
It could be one of those things where it's subtle, where it's one of those deals where it doesn't look like, because David Cage's stuff is kind of like that too, where you make a choice and it doesn't feel like it's affected anything, but then if you go back and you play again, you're like, oh, that was really subtle when it changed. Telltale does that really well sometimes too. I like that it's Nathan Drake, like notary public or importer exporter or something.
Dock worker Drake.
Yeah, just like filling out papers and he's just like grumbling.
I think that was a great choice, narrative choice on the writer's part, though, because I mean we are so used to seeing Nathan doing like these spectacular things, or dangling off a train, we're so used to seeing him in precarious positions that putting him in the most mundane setting possible is just really jarring.
He's a
That
family
was very
man.
clever. That was very clever on their part to sort of set the stage for what
it's such a good like rubber banding of the conflict that has always been between Nate and Elena too.
Yeah.
Where it's just kind of like, dude, just like slow your roll for 5 minutes, and then like, okay, maybe he finally does for a few years, and let's see what that's done to their marriage.
Yeah.
And then he's late for dinner because he's talking to his brother on a dock.
It's like, family, slow them down. What's the only thing that's going to
wait,
make
my
you...
wife. Oh, she's at home waiting.
I love that. He was like, "Oh wait, I'm married." Like that's such a Nate Drake line too. He's like, "Oh yeah, by the way, I've got this wife. She hangs out sometimes and screams at me not to jump into pirate ships."
We also got to see a bunch. We also got to see a bunch more of Far Cry Primal as well.
Yes.
We'd seen that a couple of months earlier.
finally playable, and we know what it is.
Yeah. Was it playable there?
Yeah, I actually played it on the
you
show
did?
floor. Yeah,
Oh, I
I had a
hadn't-
bunch of kiosks set up. I think it's the gameplay videos that people have been seeing on GameSpot and other sites. That's the same portion that was playable on the show
Right.
floor. But yeah, it's just a quick taste of like it just drops you into the world and says, okay, go kill some stuff. It'll be fun. And I jumped on a woolly mammoth and was riding that around. You can
Great.
charge at stuff and. Yeah, I mean, it's you are the Beastmaster. That's
You
what
can
that game is.
ride
It's great.
something, and if you won't let you ride it, you can kill it. and if somewhere in between,
Right. A bear go kill it for you.
Yeah, that's so. When I was talking to JS about it, he's the narrative designer of it. I love that they're kind of like stripping away more and more of the things that I feel like sort of got in my way in Far Cry and getting to the things that I really love. So like Far Cry 3, you think about like, oh, I want that bear to eat those dudes. But in order for that bear to eat those dudes, I've got to like unlock the thing and like throw some whatever and like, and really make it happen. In this one, it's just kind of like, yo, bear. All I want to see is a bear kill a bunch of dudes. Can we make this happen? Yeah.
You can be friends with the honey badger now. That awful.
There are like 17 different animals. I like that you do kind of like a woo, and a giant prehistoric death owl comes down.
It's a really insanely large owl. It's like, did you use it to like kill anybody?
You can upgrade.
It will destroy people. It's a brutal animation.
And you can upgrade it to throw like poison bombs too.
Bomber owl.
Because why not?
It's a real thing.
They're really making it just everything I want out of a Far Cry. He was showing me a part where they go to where he's hunting. He's hunting an animal, and as he's about to shoot it, just like an eagle randomly comes down and takes the animal, and he's like, I guess I don't get that animal. I'm like, what just happened? He's like, eagle ate it, man. I'm like, huh? He's like,
it's just life in the prehistoric era.
He's like, this is the way it is. And I'm just, this is going to be so good.
Did it feel like a sort of a Blood Dragon-y sized game, or does it? Like, it's hard to tell in those types of demos, I'm sure. But like,
I think they're looking to make it as big as, as big as 4 was, as big as 3 was. And, other things that they streamlined too. He said no radio towers, nothing like that. You walk.
You know what's going to happen? People are going to be like, I fucking missed them.
I missed the radio towers. I'm just walking around.
It's got elements.
I'm just walking around unlocking the map as I go. This is stupid. Where are the radio towers? No one's ever going to say that, Danny.
Well.
No.
I will.
Really? Big radio tower fan?
Anything else that sort of jumped out? Any indie games? Any big stuff?
Oh, sure. I mean, like Firewatch still looks amazing.
Oh yeah,
we've seen plenty of Firewatch.
That's got a radio tower.
That does have a radio tower.
Very prominent. Factors very prominently into the narrative.
It does.
Game looks good. I like that it's sort of realistic, but not like the animation style is very cartoony. Like the guy you're playing as is like really meaty hands, meaty cartoon hands. Yeah, it looks good.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And it just gets more and more beautiful every time I see it, which is great because it has that same basic cartoony style, but every time I go back, it's just like a little more layered, a little more beautiful. We still have very little idea what it actually is. That's fine, whatever. I guess we'll know soon.
It seems like kind of like a couple of steps up from what we've seen of the, to be reductive, that walking simulator genre. This one feels like you have a little bit more agency, but it's not. It doesn't feel like a big open world to do lots and lots of things in. Like somewhere in the middle, it kind of feels like.
Yeah, you have a lot. Like there's an instance. I know the one that we've seen over and over and over is the one with the boombox, where you can either throw the boombox in the lake or like take it and like yell at them or whatnot. But I was talking to Sean Vanneman when I went to play, and it sounds like there will be a lot of choices like that, and what you do will sort of influence like how like the area pans out, or maybe like how like people react to you, or how like Delilah talks to you, like who's she?
Yeah.
What's going on?
And by the way, if Sean Vanneman sounds familiar, but people aren't totally sure who we're watching, that's the guy who wrote season 1 of The Walking Dead for Telltale. That's it gives me a lot of faith in what this project could become.
Yeah, they got Nels Anderson on game design. He was the guy at Clay who made Mark and the Ninja. So it's a team that knows their stuff.
Know what they're doing. Let's talk about the showstopper of the press conference, Paragon.
Yeah.
Paragon.
Paragon. Showstopper.
Oh, okay. No, it ended the show. It was sort of felt like a whimper. At the end, it was like, oh, that's it.
It's because it's a MOBA and
we're ending on a MOBA.
nerds.
Okay, another MOBA. Fair enough. You can go play it now, I think, using the Unreal Engine launcher or the.
There's like an alpha. There's alpha access right now. I don't know if that's like limited access or everybody's open. I don't know how that's working. It's very interesting to me. It's sort of the same way, like, what is it, Dungeon Defenders? Like, Dungeon Defenders is basically tower defense.
Yes.
But because they are switching up the perspective into more of a first-person action perspective, I enjoy Dungeon Defenders more than I enjoy a tower defense game. And I think that's what they're looking to try to do with MOBAs. Because I think MOBAs are sort of shrouded in this layer of sort of jargon and people who are really into them. It's a very like insular community. But I think when you watch a MOBA, you're kind of like, I get the basic idea of what's going on. Like I understand the lands, I understand that we're both trying to get to like this other side. I get it, but there are all these things that kind of complicate and remove, I think, most people from MOBAs. Everything from that community that I was talking about to the perspective, like the top-down, click-only perspective.
It feels like like a strategy game.
Yeah, exactly. So I think they're trying to do like, no, this is a really fun type of game. This is an amazing game for teams of people, for groups of friends. So let's see if we can make that accessible and fun and awesome looking for people.
I'm kind of willing to give it a shot after playing Overwatch and enjoying it so much, because that's the game that really broke me out of, oh, this is straight up a first-person MOBA, and it's probably the best first-person game I've played this year. Like, I adore Overwatch. So hopefully we're cracking that nut, and the MOBA, which is quite reductive, of maybe expanding it into other things. We're running a bit long on this. Any other shout-outs to games that you guys play that you want to make sure you mention?
Shout-outs to video games, everybody.
Edith Finch.
Enjoy them video games.
Love you, doll.
Oh, Edith Finch,
Actually very cool. I really like Edith Finch.
Yep, Bound looked amazing.
Yeah. Battleborn continues to actually seem like a pretty cool game, even though no one seems all that interested in it. Played a little game called Clouds that was really good.
Headlander's really good.
Headlander's amazing.
And there's a bunch of VR stuff which we're going to talk about in just a second, actually. So
ton of cool stuff
about
at
that for a
PSX.
little
I
bit.
wish we could just rattle off a ton of more names.
But if you want more PSX, go to GameSpot.com. We got all that stuff right there. We'll be back in a second to talk about virtuality games, but let us know what you think are some of the games that you, as a viewer on the internet, were found entertaining and inspiring at PlayStation Experience this year.